Oh, I see what you're saying. I need more light. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, the Fuentes sisters are together. Sherry Nile, nice.
If you're a Frasier fan.
Well played. Well played.
Wear it.
Love
Yes,
it.
you gotta visit the baby. Look how cute she is.
I know she's getting so big already.
You know.
Crazy. Crazy.
Exactly.
How long you were in Texas, I take it?
Just for a week. So like
Okay.
Monday to Monday.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
It's never long enough. Yeah. Welcome back though. How was your trip?
Thank you. Trip was incredible. It was an incredible experience. The ride was fucking so hard. It was crazy. Like my body felt broken after the ride. Like the third day broke like half the people. Like yeah,
man.
it was a
How many miles total?
What's that?
How many miles total?
The mileage wise, it was like just shy of 300, like 290.
Whoa.
But we climbed 22,000 feet, which is yeah. So we had like a 7,000 over 7,000 foot day one day, and then we had two over 5,000 foot days. So like it's just anything about 5,000 is crazy, but like we had a 7,000 foot day, like it was wild. And it's not like last year's ride was difficult too, but it was like it was much steeper, but it was much shorter climbs. So it's like a really punchy climbs. We do it and we're done. But this is just like for 50 miles straight, you're just constantly climbing like 5 to 7% grade. So like to give you an example, the Capitol Hill, that hill that goes up, that's about 3.5% grade. So imagine anywhere between that and twice as steep for like 45 to 50 miles a day. Like it was fucking brutal. Like
I could not have done it, but I'm very impressed that you did.
yeah, but unbelievably beautiful. The people there are like so just hospitable and happy. Some of the most like resourceful, resilient, happy people I've ever met. And and they have nothing. Like it's just like, we rode by towns that were after the earthquake, it just got leveled and the government is not giving them any assistance and they just have to figure out how to survive. So they live in these like tent cities, basically tent villages, and they have no running water, no electricity, nothing. They just have each other to survive. So they are like huge, like this community-oriented people. They're helping each other out at all times. Like they're giving us food while like riding by. We're like, oh, what is that fruit? They're like, you want to try some? They're like, no, you just harvest this so you can go sell it. They're like, no, try some. And they would like give this away. And it was incredible. Yeah. So yeah, mountains were cool. And then, so I did that for a week. And then I came out and I was on the beach for a week. And then beaches are like the sunsets in Morocco. I didn't know this, but apparently Morocco in Arabic means land of sunsets. That's just where unbelievable. Yeah, I watched 13 out of 15 days. I watched sunset. I realized on that trip, and it's like pretty sweet. It's like a true currency for living, as somebody put it.
Oh man, that's awesome. I've only ever seen it in black and white in Casablanca.
Yeah. I actually didn't go. I mean, I was in Casablanca, but only there. Never got out.
You've seen the movie, right?
I have seen the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a few times I was like, that song "Rock the Casbah"?
Uh-huh.
I had no idea what Casbah was until I went there. I'm like, oh, so they're like fortresses, these like rammed earth fortresses that exist in the middle of deserts. Those are Casbah. So I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Cultural things I never got before until I went there. So it was cool.
Reason to do more traveling. Who knows what else there is to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really want to check out the rest of the country. We only go up north towards Tangier and Fez. But yeah, I really want to go out to Sahara Desert as well. But yeah, it's an incredible place, honestly. I actually had no idea how popular Morocco was in terms of tourism.
Destination, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many tourists.
Oh yeah.
A lot of European, a lot of Spanish, a lot of French obviously French tourists, but yeah, just ton of them. Crazy, but beautiful, amazing place. Amazing place. But yeah, glad I did it. It happened for the first time. I actually sag, meaning the support vehicle that rides in the back. I had to ride it on the first day. Like my legs just seized up. Yeah, I like cramped up. I've never had a cramps like that before. Where like my quads, my hamstrings, and my abductors are like all just like froze up, and I couldn't even take a step. Like honestly, I like just collapsed, and then had to yeah. So I didn't ride the second half of that trip, or second half of that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it was hard. Got my ass kicked. Got humbled, which is good. You know?
And then you finished it.
But yeah, except for that portion, I finished it.
Overall.
Yeah, yeah, but it was good. Anyways, I'm sure we could talk more about that. I'm sure other people have more questions. But yeah, let's get started with the wine. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the fourth and the last tasting of the Thanksgiving box. And we are wrapping it up with this guy, this little half bottle with a very dark brown looking foreboding wine. 1927 Alvear Montilla-Moriles Pedro Ximenez Solera is what we're tasting today. We'll talk about what that Solera 1927, all that means, what Pedro Ximenez means. We'll go over the label once we get into the wine, but yeah. So it's the last bottle, half bottle is what we got. Just a few announcements before we get started. For those of you who participate in the Ant Hill Farm pre-order, the wines are here. So it will be available for pickup with your next pickup day, so which is next Tuesday. So that will all be there. By the way, I do have an extra bottle of Comche Vineyard Pinot Noir. If anyone is interested or you want an extra bottle, I do have an extra bottle. So let me know. Otherwise, all good. I'll drink it. It's fine. Just so you know, Box 5.0 sign up is coming out soon. I've already started selecting some Boge boxes, pre-order some stuff. Got some legendary producers, really cool stuff. Some of the stuff, honestly, I couldn't even taste because it's all pre-order, but that's the only way I could get my hands on them. But they are all starting to come in. So the sign up is going to go out pretty soon. So keep your eye out for it. I'll send out an email. But Box 5.0 is coming. I can't believe we're putting together the 5th Box, which is insane. The enrollment for next month is all wrapped up. It's going to be New Year's Eve sparkling wines. So these are all the wines that I'm excited to open up on New Year's Eve day this year. But yeah, so that's that. So that will all be available. Pickup days next week, next Tuesday. All the shipment has gone out if you are out of DC, outside of DC. And the delivery will also happen next Tuesday. Any questions about any of that before we get into this wine? This thing is like syrup. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's quite viscous, huh? I mean, all right, this is the only time that I will talk about legs. I mean, like, look at just the amount of, like, how slowly these legs travel. Like, this is what I'm talking about, viscosity. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like you stuck a bunch of raisins in the blender, like it's water.
Yeah. Good palate. We're gonna talk about that, you know, why it tastes like that and why it's so viscous and all of that. Yeah, I cannot believe we're talking about legs, but yes, it is unlike any other wine we've ever featured on 6 Foot Wine Club. And that's part of the reason I put it here, that we're gonna check off some of the boxes on the grid that we've never called. So yeah, let's get into it. Now you see the whole spectrum, right? I want to show you the far spectrum on the other side of the wine. Last but not least, 6 Foot Wine Club is committed to donating 1% of its gross revenue to an organization whose mission statement aligns with our values. And this month I have chosen DC Food Project. So if you want to donate alongside 6 Foot Wine Club, you can check out the website and learn more about them there in the chat box. Any other questions about logistics or any of that next month and whatnot? By the way, in case you haven't heard, I think most of you guys heard this, but the last month, December, of this year, we're gonna wrap up the year with a Georgia box. So there's gonna be a lot of orange wine, a lot of tannic white wine, skin contact white wine that's coming, as well as some delicious red wines. Cool. Excellent. Hearing no questions, let's get into the wine. Again, in case you're just joining us now, boom, this is what we're tasting today. 1927 Alvear Montilla-Moriles Pedro Ximenez Solera. You may be wondering, is this really 1927? Yes and no. And then we'll get into that in a second. In case you are like, I think we've had Alvear before, you'll be correct. We've actually featured their Tres Mirada Alvear before, which is a dry Pedro Ximenez wine. It's a white wine that they make. It was one of my favorites from that year. I was really stunned by that wine. But in case you're remembering that, you're right. We featured Alvear before, but now we're really getting into their specialty, which is these kind of a sweet sherry-like, and we'll get into why this is sherry-like, not sherry in a second. Sweet and dry as well. Fortified wines made from Pedro Ximenez. And that's what Alvear does. That dry white wine was a kind of a one-off cool little thing that they do. But this is like what we're tasting today. This is really what they do the best. This is what they're really known for. Technically speaking, sherry doesn't, in general, sherry, this is not sherry, and we'll talk about that in a second why that is. But sherry doesn't meet any, like my definition of natural wine. By design, sherry is a very, very interventionist product. There's a lot of human touch that goes into to make it. Not necessarily, I guess nothing is added necessarily. So maybe it doesn't meet my definition of a natural wine, but it is a very interventionist product, just like champagne, right? You gotta add some sugar, you gotta add some yeast, and you gotta go for secondary fermentation. There's a lot of touching of the wine that happens, and the same thing happens in sherry. I know like I said, this is our first bottle of sherry, but technically this is not sherry because this does not come from Jerez region of Spain. In order for it to be called sherry, it has to come from Jerez region of Spain. And sherry is actually just an English name that the British gave to the wines from Jerez. So whenever you hear sherry, it's synonymous with Jerez. The very uncommon, I've actually never seen it. There could be Pedro Ximenez, PX, which is these are really lusciously sweet dessert wines made from Pedro Ximenez grape variety from Jerez. But honestly, most of the wines come from, most of Pedro Ximenez is grown Moriles Montilla, which is where this is one is from, not from Jerez, which is more east and more inland than Jerez. And I'll show you in the map in a second. When we talk about it, this will make a lot more sense. Yeah, in fact, I'll just do it right now. In case you ever hear the term PX or Pedro Ximenez, it's not a legal term binding the wine to this region. It can be made anywhere in the world. It's more of the process of how this wine is made. That's what gives it that PX designation. But unlike sherry, which has to come from Jerez region, PX can come from anywhere in the world. And in case you are a Argentinian wine aficionado and familiar with Pedro Ximenez spelled with a G, there should not be confused with the Pedro Ximenez, which is spelled with an X here. There are two complete different separate varieties. So don't think they're the same. They're actually completely different. But yeah, very confusing because they sound exactly the same. But let's look at the map. Right. So here's a map of Spain. This is where we are is Andalusia, which is the most southern part of Spain, right up against the Mediterranean Ocean. This is where Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Ocean meet, right? This is where I was last year doing my bike ride, speaking of bike ride. Started from Malaga, rode out to Granada, and then going towards Almeria. That's the ride that I did, going through these mountains. But as you can see, there's this whole mountain range that comes down through here. And that's what kind of makes Montilla-Moriles, which is right here, special. So Jerez is down here, over here on the left. The Sanlúcar de Barrameda, this is where Manzanilla comes from. Jerez is this around Cadiz. This is where the sherry is made from. And this is, you know, all the sherry, in case you're not familiar with the sherry, is a fortified, mostly dry. A lot of people think the sherry is a sweet wine, just because you've probably come across cooking sherry, but actual drinking sherry, most of it is made dry. And I'm going to show you a video in a second that explains sherry, just so that you get a kind of overview of what sherry is and why this is sherry-like, but not necessarily sherry because it's not comes from head, but it goes through the same process that the sherry is made. But we are right here. What defines this area is really the climate and the soil. So the soil here in Jerez, as well as in Montilla-Moriles, is heavily influenced by really chalky soil. It almost looks like those tufo in Loire Valley, that white, you almost look at the side of a mountain and there's like a white chalk running through. If you ever pick up a rock, you could probably write on the blackboard. That's how chalky it is. So it's very poor. There's not much of organic material in there, which means these vines have to struggle, which makes the yield goes down, makes them concentrated, gives this kind of mineral backbone. So yeah, that kind of is called a albariza soil type. That's what the chalky soil that runs all the way from Jerez going all the way to Montilla-Moriles. But difference between these two is that, as you can see, Jerez lies right on the coast. So there's a lot more Atlantic influence coming in, a lot more humidity, a lot more moderating influence. And as you can see, Montilla-Moriles is more inland, right up on the mountains. This is where Cordoba is, in case, as you can see right here. So on the northern tip of Montilla-Moriles is Cordoba, in case you've ever been there. Very historic city in Andalusia. Here, the climate becomes more what they call sorry, what is that? I forget exactly. Semi-continental Mediterranean. So just because it's inland, it's Mediterranean, meaning it's quite dry. The winter is quite mild, but it is semi-continental in a way that it gets really fucking hot in the summertime. In fact, it's a really sunny place. They actually have over 300 days of sun in a year. And part of the reason why Malaga here is the great, like a beachy resort destination for a lot of European tourists, just because it's so sunny and so warm. But yeah, so it gets really hot and sunny in the summertime. The winter is mild, but what makes these wines delicious and be able to be great is actually this mountain range. So this mountain range that runs through Montilla-Moriles puts it at a higher elevation, so it gives it acidity, keeps it fresh. All the best vineyards are found above 600 meters that you find here in Montilla-Moriles. So that's kind of difference. So here's the humidity, hot on Jerez, and then you get going to Montilla-Moriles. It gets even hotter in the summertime, but you also have cooler nights in the nighttime. So that gives the wine a different kind of distinctive style, but the soil-wise is pretty much the same, all the way running from Jerez to Montilla-Moriles. In terms of what's grown in Jerez, about 70% of planting, I'm sorry, less than 5% of planting in Jerez is Pedro Ximenez. This is, in fact, if you ever see Pedro Ximenez in Jerez, that's usually used as a blending wine into other sherry, which is made from Palomino grape variety. But as you move into Montilla-Moriles, you see a lot more Pedro Ximenez. So Pedro Ximenez, about 70% of planting in Montilla-Moriles is actually Pedro Ximenez and Palomino. There's some Moscato as well here that's grown for the sweet dessert wines that are being made here. But really, when you're talking about Pedro Ximenez, we're talking about Montilla-Moriles. So this we are. Let's quickly talk about Alvear real quick. Very well known, very well respected family-owned sherry producer. They're actually founded in 1729. Yeah, 1700s, early 1700s. It's the second oldest winery in all of Spain, and it is the oldest winery in Andalusia. So very, very historic, super old. By the way, the oldest winery in Spain is Raventos, which is the cava producer that we feature. So in case you were curious. The oldest sherry house in Andalusia and one of the oldest in the world, obviously dating back to 1729. It is currently run by the 8th generation of the Alvear family, still family owned. They never sold out. Obviously, at this point, it's one of the biggest sherry houses. It's run. factory than anything else. But given that, it's bigger than the producers I normally feature on 6 Foot Wine Club, but given that their wines are really fucking good and it's still family farmed and family owned, I didn't feel so bad about picking them and featuring them, even though it's more of a big house kind of a product at this point. Like I mentioned, they specialize in wines made from Pedro Ximenez. Pedro Ximenez, first and foremost, in case you're wondering, is a white grape. So you may be looking at this color and going, what? Like, there's no way that's made from white grapes, but that is from white grapes. And this is why we're going to talk about oxidation and what it does to the wine. But yeah, this is Pedro Ximenez. So this wine that you're drinking today, this deep brown amber colored wine that you're drinking today is made from this grape. Just to give you an idea. In fact, all sherry, all port, all Madeira is all made from white grapes, just so you know. It's all through the aging that it gets its color.
I'm not tired. I don't care.
It's usually, like I mentioned, Pedro Ximenez is usually used as a blending grape in Jerez, but here in Montilla-Moriles, they're a fortified single variety known as PX. So anytime you hear PX, this is that we're talking about this style of wine, very sweet, lusciously sweet wine. No one knows the exact origin of Pedro Ximenez, but it's believed that it originated in the Rhine region, which is in the Germany, going into Belgium, brought to Spain by a soldier who was serving in the Spanish army in Flanders, who consequently gave it its name. But nobody really knows for sure where it came from, but it is definitely where anywhere in the world, if Pedro Ximenez is grown, is really right here. There's some grown in Argentina, some Chile as well. Basically anywhere Spain went. That's a really hot, dry weather. But really we're talking about right here. This is the origin of this grape variety. One of the biggest assets of Pedro Ximenez variety is that it is naturally very high in sugar, as you probably have noticed. It can naturally reach 15–16%. Palomino, on the other hand, that makes sherry in Jerez, can never reach this level of alcohol. That's part of the reason why you end up using fortified wine. Fortified spirit. You fortify it with a spirit. So unaged brandy, you dump it into the fermenting grape or fermented grape juice, and then to jack up the ABV level. So you do that with the phenol. But here with the Pedro Ximenez, just because naturally so you can get that alcohol so high that you actually, what it means is that you actually you can put less spirit in the wine. So in fact, phenol style wine made from Pedro Ximenez that comes from Montilla-Moriles, by law, you're not actually allowed to fortify it. So if you ever get phenol from Montilla-Moriles, know that that is not a fortified product. But if you ever get phenol from Jerez, that is definitely a fortified product, and there's some brandy in it. So what is this wine? But before we actually get into this wine and how it's made, I actually want to show you this video, because I think, even though, again, this is not sherry, we're talking about Montilla-Moriles PX, but I think it's good to know how sherry is made, just so you get an idea of what product that we're talking about here. So give me 1 second. Let me play this video for you. There you go.
Wines grown and produced near the town of Jerez in southern Spain are among the most iconic, stylistically diverse, and misunderstood of the world's gastronomic treasures. Centuries of experimentation have forged a wine that is a perfect harmony of nature and man-made process.
Our wine here is vino de Jerez, or sherry. We have a culture where we eat lots of tapas, kind of relaxed. It's full of light, full of life. It's a beautiful place.
Consumer misconceptions abound, but when understood, sherry can be both versatile and food-friendly. It can be helpful to think of sherry as the inverse of champagne. Instead of combating the extremes of a northern climate, processes adapted to suit the sunshine and wind of the Mediterranean coast.
La comarca de Jerez es un triángulo formado donde en los vértices se encuentran 3 ciudades, Jerez, y después 2 ciudades más en la costa, Sanlúcar y el puerto de Santa María.
We have 300 days of sunshine a year. We have an average rainfall which is quite big. We're speaking about 25 inches a year, but it only, naturally, having 300 days of sunshine, it's only 65 days of rain. So when it rains intensely.
El suelo de Jerez es muy especial porque tiene un alto contenido en carbonato cálcico, es muy calcáreo.
Limestone-rich Alberitza soils dominate the best growing sites, reflecting sunlight and retaining water through the dry summer months.
Alberitza is a soil that is very high in chalk content, and the name comes from the word alba in Latin, which means white.
Sherry wine is a resultant of 2 basic things. One of them is the historic.
Historically, Andalusian Spain has been a cultural boundary between Western Europe and Northern Africa.
Jerez, haciendo vino, tiene más de 3.000 años de historia.
You have to think that we were introduced to the vineyard about 3,000 years ago by the Phoenicians.
Después continuaron los romanos.
And then we had the invasion of the Moors in the 8th century, and they, having this religion that didn't permit them to drink, which I'm sure they must have, but they did do incredible things for our culture. I mean, they introduced us to the distilling operation because the enologists of Jerez of those times realized that if they added a certain amount of wine spirit to the wine, they would give stability. And this gave the possibility of exporting to foreign countries. So that was the beginning of fortification of sherry.
Y hay, digamos, una época moderna del Jerez que empieza a principios del siglo XVIII, 1700 y algo, que digamos es cuando empieza el Jerez moderno que ahora conocemos.
By the end of the 14th century, the wines of southern Spain were being shipped to England, the country that would become its most important market.
The English had a great influence. In the first place, to name it sherry. As you know, sherry is the name of this town given by the Moors. They called it Sharish, and the English transformed it into sherry. There was a great attraction for sherry in England, starting in Shakespearean times.
By the Elizabethan era, sherry, or sack as it was referred, was common in English literature. Historians may debate the style of the wines drunk by Shakespeare and Chaucer, but by the 1800s, casks destined for export were typically sweet.
They provoked that we should produce what they liked. Normally they liked more kind of medium and cream type sherries with high alcohol content.
Cream sherries, made popular by the British, fostered the misconception that, like port, sherry is inherently sweet. In fact, local consumption was traditionally, as it remains today, decidedly dry.
You can have from a very, very dry fino, which is one of the driest wines in the world, to a very, very, very sweet PX. So you can do a meal like from the aperitif to the dessert, all through sherry.
Small amounts of Pedro, Ximenez, and Muscatel are grown for sweet styles of sherry, but over 98% of plantings are dedicated to the Palomino grape.
Lo importante en Jerez es recordar que a partir de una uva, de la uva Palomino fino, obtenemos 5 tipos de vinos secos.
The simplicity of a region dedicated almost exclusively to one grape is contrasted by a confusing array of styles. Label terminology and winemaking differ, but the heart of the aging technique that defines all sherry is the Solera. A complicated system of fractional blending, the traditional Solera divides barrels by age. When a portion of wine is drawn out of the oldest casks for bottling, it is replaced by wine from the second oldest group of barrels, known as the first criadera. The process is continued through all of the scales of the Solera, which can range from just a few criaderas to over a dozen. Sherry can be divided into two distinct styles, Fino and Oloroso. Key to all Fino sherry is the development of flor, a layer of yeast that protects the wine from oxidation during aging. Fed by the addition of young, fortified wine to the Solera system, wine destined for this biological aging is fortified to 15 to 16% alcohol, beyond which the protective layer of yeast cannot survive.
If you talk about a Fino, we always describe it as a special white wine.
Fino is a wine which is a resultant of a fortification initially to 15% alcohol. Normal wine that we produce is about 12–13%.
It needs to be kept in the fridge. It means it needs to be served really cool. It means once you open the bottle, you cannot leave it open for ages because the wine will develop and will not be so nice.
You can taste the smell of the almond, dried fruits.
You need to have it with maybe tapas or seafood or fish.
Manzanilla is a Fino sherry aged in the seaside town of Sanlúcar de Barrameda. The town's consistent temperature provides an ideal place for maintaining an active layer of flor, resulting in a fresh and lively aperitif.
When you arrive to Sanlúcar, you smell the sea, the saltiness, and I think it's something like this in the wine.
And there is another natural ingredient, very important to grow manzanilla, is the humidity. Here in this cellar, we have 85% humidity.
Manzanilla can be released after 2 years of aging, but the best bottling often spend 5 to 7 years in Solera.
Pero ¿qué pasa si dejamos que un fino y una manzanilla sigan envejeciendo? Cuando tiene 10, 12, 13 años, empieza a faltar nutrientes y la flor desaparece. El que la flor desaparezca hace que esa capa de levadura que protegía al vino de la oxidación no exista y por lo tanto el vino se oxide. Es cuando empieza a aparecer el amontillado.
Amontillado is a style of aged Fino where the effects of flor fade and give way to gradual oxidation.
So when you taste it, you have the driest part of the manzanilla and the soft part of the manzanilla, but you have the body or the notes of the oxidative with the caramel and the wood.
It'll remind you of hazelnuts, but it's very dry and voluptuous.
So it's one of the most complex wines in sherry.
Unlike Fino, the new wine introduced into an Oloroso sherry is fortified to 17 to 18% alcohol. The higher alcohol prevents the formation of flor, which leads to an oxidative aging environment.
It will happen the same as if you open an apple and it turns brownish. That's what happens to the wine.
We will associate the Oloroso to a walnut, saltiness, bitterness, and sweetness, although it has no sugar.
The word oloroso means aromatic in Spanish. So that's one of its main characteristics. It's got lots and lots of aromas. Oloroso is dry, but you can also have sweet olorosos if you blend them with Pedro Ximenez.
I would recommend it to have with meat, strong meats like oxtails.
While almost all sherry can be classified as Fino or Oloroso, Palo Cortado is a rare and hard-to-define style that exhibits the delicate aromas of an aged Fino with the full body of an Oloroso. Officially, Palo Cortado is defined by flavor, not process, so individual explanations and approaches will vary. The stylistic ranges of sherry, while confounding to the consumer, is one of its best assets at the table. From refreshing and bone-dry to nutty and complex, or even decadently sweet, each category finds its match among the wide range of local foods and offers the adept sommelier an opportunity for skillful pairing with international cuisine. At first, sherry is enigmatic, but if you take the time to explore it, both as a place and a drink, sherry has a unique allure that is difficult to forget.
Oh. There you go. Now you got a great crash course on sherry. And if that does not make you want to drink sherry, I don't know what. Because that shit makes you want to taste through all the sherries. And am I sensing some sort of maybe sherry box coming in the future? Or, you know, add-on box of just all the different styles of sherry? Maybe, just maybe. So let's talk about what this wine is. So what is this wine? It's a Pedro Ximenez grapes that are harvested early to make sure that they retain the acidity. And then they're actually sun-dried on the mat. So they actually raisin the grapes before they even crush or press it. So the raisins are crushed and then they're pressed, and they're resulting in this really viscous and extremely sweet must. We're talking about 600 grams per liter in terms of sugar level, right? We've been living in the 10 grams per liter land, right? Up to 10 grams per liter dry land for most of our wines. But now we're crossing over into somewhere between 400 to 600 grams per liter in terms of residual sugar level. So this viscous, extremely sweet must is fermented in the clay amphora for about 4 to 5 years, and just naturally allowed to let it decant, so all the kind of leaves and other things can decant to the bottom. In fact, the sugar content is so high that the yeast can actually ferment it all that much. You would think that with that much sugar, yeast would be so happy, but there's such thing as too much sugar. So there's so much sugar here that yeast can only, it ferments very, very slowly. So after 4 to 5 years, the actual alcohol level here just is only changed by a few degrees. It's barely fermented. And then year over year, during those 4 to 5 years, the winemaker will come in and fortify the wine, adding that unaged brandy. So it's all made from grapes from Spain until the must gets up to about 16%. So all the sugar that you feel in this wine, there's no sugar added here. This is all natural sugar from Pedro Ximenez that's been raisined and that's been pressed, and that barely fermented juice, and the fermentation is halted by adding brandy to it. This is essentially what this product is. Then the wine enters the Solera system. So let's talk about Solera system. I know that video covered for a little bit, but it didn't really I don't think it did a great job of explaining what Solera is. And you might have heard that term because, you know, a lot of bourbon, rum, a lot of spirit world is aging their spirits through Solera system these days. But it all originates from right here in the sherry. Some port goes through it as well, but when we're talking about it, really what we're talking about is sherry. So the very first Solera system, you see it, and I'll show you the video. Actually, let me show you this first, and then I'm going to show you 2 videos right now. They're much shorter. That I think just lays it out quite nicely. So what is Solera? This is what it is.
We've created what is a Solera. How does a Solera work? So this barrel is where we put the new wine. We put the new wine into this barrel. Then the wine that we bottle, we take out of this barrel. We take wine out of this barrel, we put it into bottles. Then using this barrel, the next barrel in the line, we fill up this barrel. And from this barrel, that goes to this barrel. From this barrel to this barrel, from this barrel to this barrel, and then from this barrel to this barrel. This one, number 1, is emptied. We leave wine in the barrel and we put new wine on top. And that one is always new, and that one is always old. We have 33 barrels in our Solera. So that means for the wine to go from here to here will take 33 years. So it's 33 years of oxidation to get to that. And that's a Solera.
Really good indication. It's
This is how Solera works in real life.
Just torching this place. Can you smell my breath from there?
So everything's been thought out, all the utensils, to respect the floor, so it's not broken.
El tubo está perforado en el extremo con el objeto de que cuando nosotros ahora lo introducirá Claudio,
so it's perforated, as you
con
can
el
see.
objeto de que cuando el vino de la escala superior fluya por aquí, por el embudo perforado, por el bastón perforado, lo haga de manera lenta, no forme turbulencia y no rompa el velo
So
del flujo.
they don't want the wine to quickly go into the barrel below, they want it to go in a steady way, not to shock the wine underneath it. So all of the utensils have been sort of modelled around the nature of the floor. In order
Esta
not
es
to,
la canoa.
and that's called the canoe.
Sobre esto se va a vertir, o sea, la canoa va sobre el rociador.
So the canoe will fit on top of the
Y sobre la canoa se rocía.
instrument you saw before, and then that adds the wine to the next level.
So that's the canoe in place, ready to receive the wine. That's very cool. Yeah.
Okay. In the same way. Que los otros años hemos tardado mucho con una espalda cuando es más fácil.
Este año no es fácil todavía porque tiene el de flor.
Sí. Bueno, en cuanto encontramos 10 botas, nos movemos rápidamente. Porque si son las 3 vinos y 9:30, cuando la pongo de las 12:30,
después hasta la 1. Que los preparen la 9, 1, 2.
Oh. So that's how Solera is done. So this is wine after it is fortified up to 16% that enters the Solera that was started in 1927. That's why you see that vintage 1927 in here. So a portion of this wine is from 1927. You can't tell you exactly what percentage it is, but over time, it's just been fractionally blended into the next barrel and the next barrel and the next barrel. So there's some wines from 1927. It's like the mother sauce that just keeps, it's like the sourdough mother that starts, and then you just give a little bit and more, you feed it and more. It's kind of like that. The Alvear family that maintains several older Soleras in individual botas, which are those barrels, dating back to 1910, 1830, and some of the founding of the bodega, they still have it. And then they're sometimes bottled and released to the market in a very, very small, minuscule quantities on a very irregular basis. So if you ever come across a bottle of Alvear that with those dates written on it, I mean, I don't know how you would ever come across. I've never seen it in real life, but it is a very special, very rare thing. Also in only the best vintages, where the grapes retain like extremely high acidity, they will actually bottle a small quantity of Pedro Ximenez de Anada, which is a vintage PX bottle. So all these things are, even though it dates back to 1927, it's really non-vintage because all the vintages over the years have been fractionally blended. But once in a while, when the condition is right, they harvest grapes with a really good acidity that will actually bottle directly and then make from the amphora after 4 to 5 years of fermenting and fortifying. and they'll release it as a vintage PX, which is super cool. This was actually Spain's very first vintage PX wine ever made, and that's Alvear who did it. And like the three Miradas, the dry Pedro Ximenez white wine that we tasted, aged on the floor, the Alvear family, I mean, even though they've been around since 1725, they continue to innovate, continue to put out new products. So yeah, really exciting, fun family, fun product, and then their wines are incredible. I mean, not that points are everything, but Mr. Robert Parker himself gave this bottle a 98 points. So, any questions about any of that? About Solera, about Sherry, about Pedro Ximenez, where this comes from, any of that before we get into actually tasting it?
Yes. Wasn't there another wine that we had that did the same kind of method?
Solera?
Like it was moving, it was definitely some similar thing where you were moving stuff from one bottle to the next and it was aging that way.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure this is not the first bottle of Solera that we've had. It might have been. No, that wouldn't make sense because that's Fino. Yeah, I don't know. Again,
We had another one. I remember seeing like that chart or something.
Yeah.
And then what was that cool tool that they were drinking out of? That giant
Oh yeah, the copita. Is,
the barrel shot glass with the long handle, whatever.
I've seen people like reach all the way arm length and like catch it with the one arm. Like it's just insane the accuracy that these guys have. But yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a
Excellent.
question. Since this is oxidized, every time they transfer it from a bottle, does that's what drives the color darker?
Both that as well as, but even more than that is just being in a barrel. Quite frankly, all those barrels. By the way, those are all American oak barrels. American oak is a little more porous than French oak, and the Spanish really prefer that because they're trying to oxidize the wine. So there's a lot of oxygenation that happens. So just being inside the barrel for 30 plus years, and every once in a while, every year, it being transferred, being taken out, and all of that. Yeah, that all adds to oxidization. Yeah. But yeah, this all started out as a completely transparent white wine, and this is how you end up with after 30 years in Solera, which is pretty remarkable. Any other questions?
Yeah, in the first video, she said the sherry couldn't stay outside you had to do it quickly, drink it quickly. Is this the same with this Solera too?
Fino. So Fino is it's a reductive wine, essentially. It's kept under floor, that layer of a veil of yeast that's grown on top of the wine, keeps it from any contact with oxygen. So when it comes into contact with oxygen, it starts to oxidize quite quickly. As opposed to these, Pedro Ximenez will change over time. It's not bulletproof. But having been pretty oxidized, it's quite bulletproof. It's not as bulletproof as, let's say, Madeira, because Madeira is actually cooked. It's actually aged in a very high temperature in the attics of wineries. That will never change. But this has not at least seen the temperature change. So Pedro Ximenez, once you open it, it will last a very long time. Like this bottle that I'm drinking right now, this was open at the end of last month. And I'm drinking the same bottle. It's been open for a month at this point. Room temperature, I didn't put it in the fridge, nothing, and it tastes exactly the same. So it will last a long time, but it will change a little bit. Any other questions? Yeah, Fino, you should keep it cold, drink it quickly. But as you go up more oxidative scale and the sugar level, it is much more stable, for sure. A lot of it is also because there's a fortification that happened there. So there's some brandy in it. So there's brandy in this wine, for sure. Cool. Let's taste the wine. And this is going to be a new one. We haven't tasted a dessert wine like this ever. So who wants to take the appearance? Come on, we're doing something new today.
I'll do it.
All right, Phil.
This is, well, it's not clear. So,
right? Yeah, it's
not clear at
definitely,
all.
yeah, this wine does not get,
And this gets in a deep intensity.
yeah, I would say this is kind of, it just doesn't get filtered or fine. And it's definitely a deep, like I can't see anything through the middle.
No,
For
and
sure.
and the color is brown.
Yeah, colors, this is definitely brown. This is all the way on the right side. So for those of you who are wondering what the fuck kind of white wine is brown, this is a white wine that is brown. You're looking at brown. Any other observations?
No, no other observations. It's just really a darkest wine I've ever had.
Yeah. But yeah, another thing I would say is, I mean, we talked about legs for a second, but really, like, look at the viscosity. As you even just swirl it in the glass, you can tell just how syrupy and viscous this wine is, right? And it's almost also, I don't know about you guys, but it's almost like staining my glass. That's how much color and how much coating is happening with this wine. And these legs are moving very, very slow. So just wanted to put out, I'm noticing the high viscosity. So if I were to getting this in a blind setting, I would look at that and probably think that there's really high amount of sugar or something that's happening here. All right, excellent job, Phil. You have to pick the next person for the nose.
All right. Below me is Julia.
Julia.
Okay. It's gonna be weird.
No, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great.
All right.
Start from the top.
It's not faulty. I would say it's clean.
This one is clean. This one is sound. There's no fault on my own, at least. There is such thing as a faulty wines, even with the fortified wines. But yeah, mine smells fine. Mine smells clean.
I'd say like medium or medium plus. I get it a little off the glass.
Oh, and no, definitely medium plus.
I don't know. All right, give it a little swirl and start moving it closely. See where you end up. I mean, I'm not here.
Yeah, like it could be pronounced.
Yeah, I'm going pronounced here. Mine is like way up here.
And I don't smell things very well.
But yeah, this is a expressive. It's like jumping out of the glass. So I'm gonna call this pronounced. Aroma characteristics. Let's go here. What do you get?
No, none of those.
Let's just we skip straight to raisins.
Right? I mean, when you're talking about fresh fruit, like there's none of that, right? Like there's no fresh flowers, fresh citrus, even though this is white wine, there's none of this happening here, primarily, right? Maybe you can talk about some like a dried prunes, like a black plums, but like dried. Right? But yeah, this is exactly where we are.
Yeah.
Dried fig, prune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dates.
Exactly. Dates. It's all of those things, right? Anything else? You got any herbaceous, herbal?
I don't get anything.
It's just all dates.
Yeah. I don't get much of that. It's really just such concentrated, like just the date, fig, prune, raisin, all of that. If you ask people from Alvear, they'll tell you that there's a minerality running through, but like when there's this much sugar on the wine, it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
Minerality, honestly, but supposedly.
Maybe under all the raisins, but I can't smell it.
At least not on the nose. Maybe once we get to tasting it, maybe texturally wine will be a little different, but like on the nose, like, yeah, to me, this is all that. Any secondary here? Do you get any yeast, MLF, sign of oak?
How do you?
Let's see that.
I mean, you could convince me there's some like vanilla from the oak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hard
I mean,
it's hard to tell though. Like,
yeah, to me, this is not like a new oak vanilla that you normally get. This is like to me more in the like, cocoa nibs, coffee, like dark.
Fair.
Yeah, that kind of territory.
Yeah, I mean, Phil said molasses in the chat, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I think molasses is an excellent call.
Yeah.
I think molasses is a great call. Yeah. Any tertiary here?
I mean, I know they were big on the walnuts, which I guess I could see. I mean, there's definitely a nuttiness going on.
Yeah. And you will get that a lot more on the palate than on the nose.
Yeah.
But even on the nose, I mean, this deliberate oxidation, this toffee caramel.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Toffee is more of the, yeah.
It's everywhere. Like it's so pronounced.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it's like dried again. Figs,
Yeah, like the fig prunes for sure. Yeah.
a lot of that. There's I mean, I get a little bit of nutty here. I get a little like almond skins and things like that. I do get also a little bit of like a earthy kind of like I almost want to call it mushroom, but like there's something like savory and earthy going on here underneath all of that, like really figgy, pudding, deep, all of that. But really, yeah, we're talking about coffee, caramel, some nutty, touch of mushroom. It's kind of what I get. Excellent. You get to pick the next person for the palette.
Let's see. I mean, Allison, I don't want to pick on you because you're without the cheese, but
but you're going to anyway.
I'm going to.
Empty words.
We don't want to.
Empty words.
Yeah, no, I was really pressured into it. It was forcing my hands.
Yeah, so few other options. Okay, are you gonna show the thing? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, I'm on my phone. Oh gosh. I mean, is it luscious? I don't even know.
Yeah, this is definitely in the luscious territory. This is what, just to help you calibrate your senses, this particular bottling that was released is about 405 grams per liter of sugar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is what 400 grams of sugar per liter sugar feels like, tastes like, just to help you calibrate your senses. So, dry, we've been talking about anywhere from 0 to like 10 grams, but usually the wines that we feature here are usually the 5 to 7 grams per liter, territory, and then now in the 400. And this is what luscious sweet tastes like. So this is our time to talk about this sweet scale a little bit because we haven't had a chance to talk about this. But this is why when a lot of people, when we've tasted like cabinet style Riesling, a lot of people are like, oh my God, to me, this is really sweet. This is maybe medium sweet. But imagine, like I said, from the very beginning of Six Wine Club, this is considering entire spectrum of wine that's ever been produced. So imagine the most dry, bone dry wines that we normally drink to this wine and anywhere in between. So if you're coming across, 10 to 15 grams per liter of sugar, which is about cabinet level Riesling, Mosel Riesling, and that you guys think is so sweet, I'm like, oh my God, this is like a dessert wine. Compared to this is why that belongs in the off-dry territory. Because when we're getting into medium dry, medium sweet, we're talking about like 100 grams per liter, 150 grams per liter of sugar. So, again, this is why this is good to kind of help you calibrate your senses here, calibrate the scale, to get a sense of what off dry, medium sweet will be like if this is luscious. So, but yes, this is lusciously sweet.
I'm glad I got it. I'm off to a good start.
1 for 1. Batting 1,000 right now. Acidity.
I can't even swish it. It's too thick. I'm like, I feel like, I don't know, it's hard for me to figure this out with the sweet wine. For me, I'm
Yeah.
not experiencing it as very acidic, but I also am like, but Un wouldn't give us a wine that wasn't acidic, so I'm gaslighting myself. But I
Yeah,
don't get, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's perceptively it's hard to, especially when there's this much sugar. But just imagine if this didn't have acid, this would be sickeningly sweet. In
Oh,
fact, we
yeah.
wouldn't be able to drink this. You know what I mean?
Fair.
So
Yeah.
if you can somehow really isolate your senses and pay really attention to where you feel acid, like mine is back here. If you really pay attention, there's really good amount of acidity here. This is solidly in the medium plus territory here. And again, without this medium plus acidity, this wine would be undrinkable. If this was like medium minus low, like you're basically drinking sugar water. It would not be very good. So this is part of the reason why, even though we're in the 400 grams per liter sugar level, this is the reason why this is palatable and even delicious, is because there's acidity. And I'm going to call this medium plus acidity. Any tannin?
I believe you. I still don't get it, but I believe you.
So yeah, move it around. Like, try not to taste for the sugar, but try to just wait for the senses, wherever that is for you. Or if you watch for like how much your mouth is watering, just watch for it. But there's good amount of acid here.
Yeah,
this is a good wine to like test for these things. Tannin?
I don't feel like I'm getting much.
Yeah, no tannin. Yeah,
That's
this is all destemmed, dried, and it's just quickly pressed off, so there's no really skin contact here. So yeah, this is no tannin here. Alcohol.
Great. So, sorry, I'm like, I have no brain, and I did watch the video and it all is gone already. Is this a fortified wine?
This is a fortified wine, yes. So this has brandy.
What's the range for fortified, or how does it differ from a normal wine?
Excellent question. So normally we talked about alcohol, medium being like 12%, right? High and above, low being 10 and below. When you get into fortified wine world, really like 15-16% is like the medium. Because otherwise we can get into the high territory where it's like 20 to 22%, and then low. I mean, even honestly, 15 and 16 is on the lower side. Like medium should be 18. So just feeling for the warmth, where do you think this is, if you have to guess? I don't know.
I feel like it is low. I feel like I would think of this as like a 15.
Yeah, me too. It's not
like
super
more
high.
Than more than an alcoholic normal wine, but like not super crazy.
Yeah, this is 16% on the bottle, so which would be kind of like the low end of fortified wine territory, maybe like medium minus, low maybe 15. So yeah, I mean, especially coming from California, coming from America, like there are Californian wines that get into 15.5, 16%. So without adding brandy, you know. So this is we're in that territory here. But yeah, I'll call this like low to medium minus fortified wine alcohol. Body.
Full.
This is full bodied. I mean, you know,
That's
this is I think this is thicker than cream, honestly.
It's like, so thick.
Yeah, it's very thick.
Like
this is
thicker than maple syrup for sure.
Yeah, it's like moving cement through your mouth. Yeah, this is definitely a full-bodied wine. Musu, we don't talk about that. Flavor intensity?
I mean, I feel like it's pronounced. I don't know if the
100%.
scale is different. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's it is screaming. This wine is jumping out of the glass. Everything that I taste in the mouth, in the palate, it's just, it doesn't like any concentration. I would definitely call this pronounced as well. Do you agree with everything that Julia and Dan called out? Anything else that's
I don't think there's anything else I would add. Everything that they were saying about the nose was like also what I'm experiencing when I drink it.
Yeah, 100%. To me, there's none of this fresh fruit here. This is all about prunes, figs. This is all dry fruit. It makes sense. They let they dry the grape berries in the sun. So yeah, you lost all of that freshness. This is all in the fig, prune, raisin. A lot of that toffee, caramel, cocoa nibs. A lot of that dark chocolate. A lot of tertiary notes here as well. I guess some of that mushroom. And you guys are gonna think I'm crazy here. And this is why I always go back to on the first week of each month when I say, whatever you smell that brings you back to a point in your life. You might have grown up with a different set of smells and taste than other people, Europeans. But to me, a lot of these Oloroso sherries, like fully oxidized sherries, have a touch of soy sauce. There's this like fermented soy saucy kind of a thing going on. There's a bit of that going on here as well, which I get. And, you know, obviously if you haven't been going out with a fucking amphora, like clay jars of a fermenting soy sauce on your rooftop, like I did, you probably may not know what that smells like when the fermented soybean goes from that to soy sauce. But like to me, it reminds me of that quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, everything that Dan and Julie picked up, I 100%. Toffee, caramel, chocolate, coffee, prunes, figs, raisins, all of that. Length?
Oh. I mean, I think it's probably long. But I don't know if it's because it takes me too long to swallow it.
No, I mean, just sit with it afterwards. I mean, it's also because it's so viscous, it probably doesn't get washed out of your mouth.
I know, it's like, I don't know if it's the finish or just the fact that it's still there.
Yeah, but
I
mean,
would call it long.
Like I'm still tasting it. And it's evolving finish too. Like all that fig juice, dates, you know, raisins, that's what hits me at first. I get a little bit like the mushroomy, soy saucy, like touch of that kind of like the savory touch, but really finishes with all that oxidative, nutty walnuts. If you sit with it, there's all this kind of nutty things that are happening at the end. So fucking good. But I'll call this long as well. So take it on for us. How good is this wine? And would you age it?
Very good.
Why very good? Justify for me.
Aren't I right?
Balanced?
This is like second grade math where I would get the right answer. They'd be like, show your work. And I'd be like, but if I got it right, I shouldn't use it.
Well, let's talk about it. Is this wine balanced?
Yes.
Right? Even with the 400 grams of liter per sugar, you're calling this balanced. Because to me, it is sweet, but it's not stopping me from experiencing other things, right?
No.
Call it balanced. Concentration. What do we call it on the nose? Yeah, pronounce on the nose, pronounce on the palate, right? Complexity. What would you call that?
I guess it's complex. Yeah, because it has all the
very complex. Yeah, we got primary, bunch of different primaries. We got bunch of secondaries. We got bunch of tertiaries. I mean, we're hitting it all. So definitely very high complexity. And then the length, we called it?
Long.
Long. So why very good? Why not outstanding?
I guess I don't know when you put it that way.
Yeah,
I feel like so few things are outstanding.
Yeah, agreed. And I think this is one of them. You may not like this wine, right? You may not, this is not maybe your preferred style of wine, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking how good it is. Try to put it as
I guess you're right. I guess I was thinking like, I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking.
I'll tell you what you were thinking. Had you had blue cheese, you would have called this outstanding.
It's really, everyone's kind of rubbing it in and it's making me feel kind of bad. I tried it with smoked cheddar and feta because I had those in the fridge and I was like, this is not as good as blue cheese would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the blue cheese appropriateness is like, it jumps from the glass at me.
Right? Yeah.
It like smacks me on the head.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'll call this outstanding. Would you age this?
I feel like this was in the video. I think I would, but I think I think I would. but I think part of that's because I think like fortified wine can be aged, and that's just the rule.
Exactly.
But then I'm also aware that it has low tannin, and I can't remember if that matters.
Yeah, but with a high alcohol like this, good acid, it does have things going on. I would say it is ageable. I don't think this wine is going to go bad by aging. But is it going to get much better by aging it? I also don't think so. It's more of just longevity, not necessarily complexity. So
yeah, it's not going to like
drink it now,
change a
but
lot.
you can also come back to it in 5-10 years and it'll probably be just fine. Honestly, there's nothing about this that's going to get destroyed with the amount of alcohol, amount of acid in here. It's already been fully oxidized. Well, almost, pretty much fully oxidized. So unless there's a lot of temperature change that's going to happen, this wine is pretty close to being indestructible. So very, very age-worthy. But drink it now, because I think this is exactly how they imagine it to be. Excellent, excellent. Any questions? Molasses. I know, sorry, Phil, that's not on the grid, but I think that's a fantastic call. Molasses. Yeah, I think molasses is actually even better call, because to me, molasses has some of that like savory component to it. It's high in sugar, but the actual flavor of molasses has some savory component, and I think this has that for sure. Any questions?
Yeah, so the first video you showed, I think one of the ladies mentioned like the sherry winemaking method was made like much like the method champenois, like to adapt it to the climate. Is what she was saying that like fortifying the wine and interrupting the sort of fermentation process is the only way to make wines in like a super fucking hot place like southern Spain? Is that what she's saying?
Pretty much. I mean, but not all of them are oxidized like that. Like Fino is a very delicate kind of a thing, but it is also made in the you got to have the right amount of temperature and the right amount of humidity for flour to form. It doesn't just form when leaving alone. So they have to figure that out. Adding brandy and fortifying it so it doesn't go bad. It can last longer. All those things is basically what she's talking about. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the serving size of this? Or like, do people drink a lot of this? I actually enjoy it. But I'm also like, I don't think I can drink very much because it's very sweet and very a lot.
Yeah, it's not meant to be.
Tiny.
You're not drinking a wine glass full of it. I mean, the sherry glass is even much smaller.
I'm using a little like beer glass.
Yeah, the glasses that you guys use at wine prom, that's a sherry glass.
Oh.
So, it's usually like 2 ounces, 2 to 3 ounces, and then you're just sipping a little bit. You don't need to gulp this. I mean, you don't want to gulp this. I mean, it's like, it's fucking syrup,
Yeah.
Or, Allison, if you have vanilla ice cream, pour this over your vanilla ice cream. It'll be fucking delicious.
It's really good. Really good on it.
I have mint chip ice cream.
I'm curious. What did people eat with
Bill,
this?
are you having this on ice cream right now?
No, before we started Wine Club, I had it on ice cream.
Oh,
I'm having
brilliant.
the cheese.
Yeah. What did people have with this tonight? What did you eat? I'm curious.
I did the blue cheese.
Yeah.
It was so good. I felt like not only was the wine better, but the cheese was better.
Yeah.
This was like a true pairing.
Amazing.
Sorry.
Hear that, Allison?
We did the dates with the blue cheese.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right?
Great recommendation.
Yeah. Amazing. How many of you guys like this wine, just out of curiosity?
I really liked it.
Yeah, did anybody not like this wine? Or was anybody surprised that they liked this wine? How about put it that way? Because I know a lot of you guys are very skeptical of sweet wines. Look at you, Julia Brothers.
I was surprised not because of the sweetness, but because I don't think of myself as liking sherry. So when you said it was basically sherry, I was like, there's like often like I don't know what that is. There's like a flavor quality area I don't like. But whatever that is, I don't experience that in this one. So I like it more than I think I like sherry.
I think it's like the viscosity was really like, I mean, because I like a port, you know, I like a fortified, you know, like, but this was like taking it to 11 in a way that like, and I'm curious about because I know you said not to chill it, and I wonder if it would have been a little more approachable for me personally if it had been a little chilled.
Maybe.
I was kind of thinking when I was drinking, I was like, oh, I think I would like this better if it was cold.
Wait, did you eat something with this?
We had the blue cheese.
Okay.
Yeah. And it did go very well with the blue cheese. I still feel like it's just like too like a little
You're not used to
too
the
much.
thickness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the thickness really threw me off.
Chilling it would not have made it less thick then.
Say that again, Dan?
Then they could be like, oh, it's my little milkshake.
I would have said chilling it would not make it less thick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, if you don't like the viscosity, this is very viscous. So yeah. Excellent. Well, just wanted you guys to experience this kind of like far end of the scale of a wine world. Like there are wines like this that exist out there as well. So again, hopefully this shows you, entices you into the world of sherry. That it's not all monolithic. Sherry is in fact very, very diverse field of styles. Hopefully it makes you curious enough to go and explore it. And honestly, sherry in terms of quality, I think it's some of the best bang for your buck wine that's out there. Yeah, the amount of quality you get for per dollar in sherry world is insane. So yeah, and you got to experience brown white wine with a full viscosity, with a full body, and all of that. So lusciously sweet, which is something we've never done before. So here we go. All right, let's play the last game. How much do you think this wine is? Think about it. All right. It's a half bottle, right? It's not a full bottle. It's $3.75. But this wine, the grapes get raisin, which means all the yield gets reduced even further, right? And it's aged 30 years through Solera system. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be willing to pay for this product, knowing what it took to make this? $30.25. So remember, Norris, you're saying this full bottle would be $60 on a retail shelf, and you're willing to pay $50 for a bottle of 30, 25, 40, 35, 28, 20, 35, 35, 30, 22, 40, 35. This wine on a retail shelf is $33.99. Oh. So for 34 bucks, you're getting a 30-year-old wine that has some 1927 in it. That, I mean, honestly, wine like this, and we called it outstanding, wine like this should cost way more. But because we're talking about Andalusia and southern Spain, we're able to get wines that are so much cheaper than it should be. So there you go, 34 bucks for a bottle of this. For honestly, when I first tasted this, first of all, I was stunned. I was like, holy shit, this is so good. And two, immediately blue cheese, obviously. But in my head, it was like, to me, this is like pecan pie. Like pecan pie, sweet potato pudding, like figgy pudding, all that Thanksgiving dessert. So that's why I put it in there. So I know you're probably not gonna finish this before Thanksgiving. I don't know, maybe you will. But I hope you guys try it with different pies. Even pumpkin pie. I bet this is fucking delicious with pumpkin pie, if you're into pumpkin pie. But yeah, there it is. Any questions? And this wine will last just fine. Like it's what? October 30th today? By Thanksgiving, you can leave this in room temperature, just cork it, it will be fine. Honestly, you don't have to worry. all that. You'll be just fine. Any questions?
No, but using those canoes that didn't hold much wine to transfer from barrel to barrel, was a lot of work. I mean,
know.
I do 3 transfers. He must have been there for 40 transfers for 1 barrel.
I know. It's a you know, labor of love. You know, you go to these really old historic properties and make them watch them make wine, and you're like, what? Like, why did you choose to do this as a living? Like, you could have done something so much easier that makes you more money. But yeah. Anyways. Any other questions? Phil, just so you know, the Ant Hill farm has been shipped out, so it's on its way to you. And yeah, just wanted to let you know. I saw your email.
That's the case? That's the case?
That's the case, yeah.
Oh, terrific.
Yep. On its way. Everybody's dropping like flies, huh? Well,
you must be exhausted from your trip though.
I feel okay.
Jet lag back.
Yeah, but for some reason today, I think I'm coming down with something. Like I feel a little stuffed, but yeah, it took me like full 4 days before I felt like normal again. Like every time I was going up the stairs, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
My legs were not working.
And you ate Moroccan food while you were there, or you had
oh my God,
special diet?
Well, if I had to eat one more tagine, I was just gonna slap somebody. Yeah, just ate tagine after tagine after tagine, the hopes, the bread. Yeah, that's every day.
Wow.
Lunch and dinner every day. So yeah, it was rough. After a while, I was like, oh, I don't want to eat tagine again. But some of those tagine that we ate, particularly the beef and prune tagine, I don't know if you had it when you were there. It was so good. It was like my favorite.
All right.
yeah.
Well, I have to. I'll see you next Tuesday.
All right.
Wednesday.
All right. Have a good night, Phil. See you later.